So what are the challenges for those with dementia or brain injuries? What might they struggle with related to communication?
So obviously verbal communication may be impacted. We know a lot of people with dementia, it's usually impacted. So not being able to formulate speeches, so word production, being able to put a sentence together. Within brain injuries, it may be losing all verbal communication, but only retaining certain words and being able to verbally be able to get those out. It's understanding language. There's the other side of it as well. So understand what's being said to them. So trying to understand the language being used and the words. That's why we don't overcomplicate things sometimes. Lots of different ways. So again, formulating speech production, understanding more complex sentences, and complex is different for everybody, I think. So do you want a bath or a shower, or would it be better if that was condensed? So bath, shower, using words like thingamajig for the remote and those sorts of things. Yeah, I think it's a really, really long list of different ways it affects it.
Yeah, one of the things I know that we kind of refer to is obviously in about 95% of cases of dementia, the brain deteriorates asymmetrically. So the brain is affected more on one side than the other.
Yeah.
In the majority of cases, it tends to be the left side of the brain tends to deteriorate faster than the right. And the left side is the area associated with expressive and receptive communication. Whereas the right side of the brain that retains is more around rhythm, music,
swear words.
But there's certain language that's in there as well. So we store different language in different parts of the brain. So general vocabulary tends to in this left side of the brain, but the things that we're not supposed to say. So swear words, racial slurs, nasty comments, but also the rhythm of speech. And I think that's a common thing with those dementia, that they kind of retain the rhythm of speech.
Yeah.
So they can do the general chit chat kind of thing. So if you're going, hey, how are you? Are you all right today? Oh, yes, I'm all right. Thank you.
Yeah.
It kind of gives the impression that they're still able to communicate, and they're kind of
they seem all right this morning. Something I've heard quite often.
Yeah, absolutely. And it may be just that we weren't asking difficult questions. And as soon as then you try and go into something a little bit more in depth or a little bit more complicated that requires those different words to be found, suddenly that's where they get a little bit lost.
Yeah.
I know my gran and a few of the people I know are brilliant at putting on the show sometimes as well, where because they pick up the rhythm of the speech, we kind of, a bit like when we don't hear what somebody says, we know whether to nod yes or shake our head no.
Yeah.
So it's not, again, it's not what you say, it's how you say it, and they're picking up on your body language. But we sometimes tell them what we want them to say. So if I'm going to a person, right, are you ready to get up this morning? Yes. Yeah, you're not going to hit me, are you? They're just nodding and shaking their head along with, not really understanding what I'm saying, just because they kind of want that easy life and they just want to appease. But then suddenly we start trying to touch them, move them, do anything, and that's going to trigger then a reaction of, I didn't know you were about to do that.
That's just reminded me of a point. We had a gent that we was looking after with vascular dementia, and it'd say, "Gonna go to the doctors today," and it'd just be, okay, not really that 100% sure. Then trying to get him into the car, big behaviours, and he's not understood that he's going to the doctors. And when we're trying to get him in the car, he doesn't want to go into the car, not because it's the doctors, I just don't want to go out. So that's when we, had a huge behaviour.
Yeah. Because again, the carers had interpreted he must understand because he smiled and nodded.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
So there's three things I think affects those with dementia. One is memory retention.
Yeah.
It's remembering the words and remembering the flow of a sentence as well. If by the end of a sentence you've forgotten what I was talking about at the beginning of the sentence may not make any sense anymore.
No.
So if I go, right, the doctor's coming to see you in a little bit. Okay. Right, he'll be with you in a minute. Well, who's he now? If I've lost the thread of that conversation, I've lost the memory of who you were talking about, the doctor bit, who's coming to see me? So I kind of inform them, keep using the same phrase. So the doctor will be here in a minute. Or let's say your daughter's coming to visit. But then in cases, or she'll be here in a little while, or she just asked if she'd like a drink. Who'd ask if I'd like a drink? So it's she suddenly becomes irrelevant because we retain that information to know that she meant the previous subject, whereas they don't remember what the previous subject was. So the other one is perception, that again, how can I call a mug if I don't recognize it as a mug? And I think we kind of touched a little bit on that on the last podcast, the perception of also facial expressions, recognizing somebody's face
Mm-hmm.
and knowing the face and the feelings, but not knowing the name for that person and things like that. So that can affect communication. And the other one is a filter. And the filter's a bit that stops you saying from the things that you shouldn't. So like the swearing and the nasty comments and racial slurs and stuff like that. It's that where we used to hold things back, they might just come out. The thoughts now become a spoken word rather than anything else. I did think I'd just talk a little bit about aphasia. So aphasia is a term that we use for a difficulty with speaking. Like dysphagia is difficulty with chewing, but aphasia is associated with talking and communication. And there's two types. There's called Broca's and then there's Wernicke's. So Broca's aphasia is affecting a part of the brain called Broca's area of the brain. And I think this most affects the expressive communication. So individuals who've got Broca's aphasia tend to do a lot of umming and ahhing. They may make up new words for things. They get stuck and can't find the right word for stuff. And that's one of the ones that people identify as being a particular area as far as a particular factor related to those living with dementia. Would you agree on that? Was a bit, didn't know, I was just really find the words. Wait, did you go into non-active listening then? Yes, Andy. So yeah, with the Broca aphasia, where they struggle to find the right words. So if I can't remember the words, she's coming, what's her name? What's her, and what do we tend to then do?
Tell them.
We tell them. Okay, thanks for joining in. And one of the frustrating things for those with Broca's is that people often, like if I was to ask you kind of, if I was to kind of be talking about, the things that make up a sentence or what are they called, the individual things, and you go words, it might cause me to react like, I knew, and I get irritated with you because how come you found that so easily and I found it so hard? And I was getting there, I was trying, and I should be able to. Or the other one is becoming upset by it as well. Kind of.
Yeah, I think as a carer, we feel like, and I've done this plenty of times, so I'll hold my hands up. We feel like we're doing them a favour by filling in the missing words for them. Yeah. So, what's that thing that you sit on? Oh, do you mean the chair? Yes, I know it's the chair. And it's like, whoa, okay. Yeah. But I think looking from their point of view, like you said, I was getting there and you just didn't even give me a chance to get there. Yeah. But then it's also from a carer's point of view, we don't want to stand and stare at them for 5 minutes. Like, come on, we know what you mean. Come and find the word. It's getting that nice balance between of letting the person try and find the word. And if they're getting stuck, and just reassuring them, saying, it's okay, don't worry. Do you want me to tell you what it is?
I think a good analogy for that, if you're ever speaking to somebody who, like jargon you mentioned earlier, for instance, or and somebody who's like really knows computers, and you kind of go, I think it might be the memory, and they go, oh, do you mean RAM? And it's like, you knew what I meant. Why did you need to correct me? Yeah. Okay, and it's a bit like that, isn't it? Or the thing over there, you knew what I meant. Why did you need to remind me the word? And that can make a person feel stupid. Not trying to make them feel stupid, it can make them feel stupid. Wernicke's aphasia is a form of fluent aphasia. So Broca's is non-fluent. So they stop. They're struggling to find the word. That's kind of a Broca's aphasia kind of communication. Whereas Wernicke's aphasia is fluent. So the pace of their speech and their tone of speech might be completely okay, but it may suddenly be that the pigeons and the things that they're sitting on are no longer relevant to me, and I sometimes find that the way that I put the benches together is not the way that it should, skyscraper. And again, that was maybe a very poor example in the way I'm trying to mock, but it's kind of the fluency of the speech is still there, but the words are all wrong and all over the place, and that's what's called Wernicke's aphasia. And Wernicke's aphasia tends to be, they also struggle with the receptive, so struggling to find the right words. And that's the importance of understanding expressive and receptive, isn't it? That I may be able to use the right words, but a word you're using may sound like a foreign language now, or a foreign word. Mm-hmm. And what a lot of people tend to do to overcome that is they just go louder and slower. we teach people elder speak, don't we? As
yeah,
far as
don't like
care.
it. Don't like it at all. So, do you want a cup of tea?
Yeah.
I'm not surprised people have behaviours if they're being spoken to like that. It's quite belittling. And I don't think carers mean to do it, but we just automatically assume that they can't hear us.
Yeah.
So we end up talking louder. Now, sometimes a loud speaking person, it can be perceived as shouting.
Yeah.
I always just tell people, if somebody's not understanding your question, change your question.
Yeah.
Change a few of the words around, and hopefully in that language bank, I kind of call it, hopefully they might be able to pick something out and say, oh, I recognise that. Yes, I do want a cup of tea, or yes, I will have those meatballs, whatever it might be.
yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's changing what we say. It's also remembering things like, I remember an incident where it was a carer talking to a lady and she kept going, do you want to go to the loo? The what? The loo. What are you saying? Do you want to go to the loo? And you just kept getting louder, and the lady was getting irritated and the carer was getting irritated. And it wasn't until another carer just walked past and went, toilet, Ethel. And she went, oh, yes, please.
Yeah.
And it was just because the loo is also, it's quite difficult kind of two words put together that you can't really differentiate. It flows. It's also quite a modern term. It may have been the aphasia, meaning that word didn't make any sense in that moment.
Yeah.
Or just the way the carer spoke wasn't right, but just kept repeating it over and over again with just calling agitation and frustration rather than clarity. And again, that's where the importance of adding in visual communication to what we're saying as well.
Yeah, that could be really useful.
Yeah, how can I ask somebody through a window if they'd like a drink? Well, if I just simulate it, would you like a drink? Bring them a hand up in a kind of a drinking mime, then straight away that can aid that understanding, isn't it? It's really
massively
important. So make it part of a habit. So I did write a little thing out as far as also how those with dementia sometimes interpret language. So I'm just going to I'll read this sentence. All right, do you want to read it actually? So if you can read the first one.
Oh, okay. So, if I the following two missing every fourth, then you may it hard to what I am. This is how people living with may experience people are saying them.
What we've done, if I read the full sentence now, so if I read the following two sentences, missing every fourth word, then you might find it hard to understand what I'm meaning. This is how some people living with dementia may experience what people are saying to them. So one of the theories is that one in every four words kind of disappears, so to speak, or is not understood. And you take out that one every four words, suddenly the sentence becomes very difficult to understand. Especially if it's nouns that are missed as well. Who, what, where, what are you talking about? Suddenly the whole context of the sentence can be missed. So what type of things can help? So
reducing the barriers. So if a person with dementia is communicating in a different way, if they are doing a bit of effing and jeffing, maybe there might be something going on. Are they in pain? Are they hungry? Are they tired? Are they just wanting some attention, which is not a bad thing at all? Reducing those barriers can help with effective communication.
It's also things like just turning the telly off.
Yeah.
If you wanted to have a conversation with them and they're finding it distracting, then can we ask them permission to turn it off before we explain something important as well as it?
Yeah.
Also a big thing, one person talking at a time.
One person, it's too much.
Yeah, two carers both communicating. That's two senders that then the person's having to receive both ideas and interpret. More room for error and overload, definitely. Yeah.
Allow visual engagement. So visuals really, really important. I think, like you said, with hand gesturing. So we recognise, you want a drink? I think that's quite a universal thing. And so that universal sort of body language is really, really important. Using things like flashcards, I think they can be really useful for a lot of people as well. So if they're not understanding the language, maybe the picture will be more prominent for them. That'll be a lot better for them. Using alerters, avoiding pronouns, good pace of speak, calm and clear, which is what we like. So not overloading a person with loads of information because it's just far too much. No older speak. So, would you like a cup of tea? Do you want to come and have a bath now? They'll probably tell you to jaff off. There's other things as well, things like ensuring glasses and hearing aids are available, they're clean, they're able to use them. I know in dementia there are a lot of people don't use hearing aids because they may not want to. I don't know if you've ever tried one, Andy, they're not that comfortable, to be honest. So using their language, so mirroring language is always a really good positive form of communication. And I don't mean shouting at them that they shout back. But if they're speaking in a lower, calmer tone of voice, then doing pretty much the same, sitting down with them.
Words as well, isn't it? Like if they've got like a colloquialism, which is a kind of a local term that they tend to use. Well, using that same term may mean that they're more likely to retain it or remember it. Yeah, definitely. It's the kind of thing. Would you like a bap, a cob, a barn cake, whatever it is, as far as which area of the country they're from? If they want them to have a bap, do they use the term bap or do they use the term cob? They may not understand that other kind of that colloquialism. Yeah,
I think one of the biggest things about it is recognizing behavior is a form of communication. So it's not just listening to the words, it's listening to the feelings as well. So using both as much as you can together. I had a Jen, and I think I told you about him, didn't I? He always used to shout, home, home, home. It didn't necessarily mean that he wanted to go home. He just wanted to speak to his mum. It took us about 6 months to work that out. Right, and we could have reduced, I'll be honest, could have reduced so many behaviours.
Communication charts is really important. Yeah. And so if you hear us, what do they mean when they say this? And sometimes, again, it's that detective from the judge thing that you kind of referred to earlier, that looking for patterns that when we did this seemed to then make them happy when they were saying that. So is it something, or within dementia and acquired brain injury, it's being a bit of a detective looking back at the past. If they're saying a name, what does that name represent? Who is that person to them? Is it the name that the person they're wanting, or something that person used to provide for them that they're wanting as well? I had a lady who just used to shout Molly, and it turned out that her previous carer's name was Molly, and Molly basically meant, can I get a drink, please? Yeah. So, once the carers kind of understood that, then it was a case of, when she's shouting Molly, we now know what she's communicating. Yeah. Definitely. The other thing is making sure you're not intimidating and standing over them or standing in a position that might make them feel intimidated. If, Maslow's hierarchy, as you said, are they hungry or thirsty or in pain or anything like that? But also, are they perceiving you as a threat? Are you coming across as friendly? And it's managing your body language, because this may be, the 100th time you've spoken to them, but it may be the first time for them.